Today I'm taking you through the last act of An Inspector Calls, Act 3. Now, if you missed my videos on Act 1 and Act 2, make sure you go and watch them now and then come back to this video so you're up to date with all the drama and everything that's been going on. The final act of the play serves to set up even more mystery and changes the genre of the play from a whodunit detective fiction to a morality play and even a supernatural story. We have our final interrogation, which is Eric's interrogation, the inspector's final sermon and exit, and then the Birling family's recovery from this brutal questioning. And then we have a final twist. Eric confesses that he raped Eva Smith in a drunken state, which is the worst and most shocking revelation out of all of the interrogations in the play. He says, "Yes, I insisted. It seems, well, I was in that state when a chap easily turns nasty and I threatened to make a row." The vague language here, like "it seems," tries to detach him from the magnitude of his crime. And he seems to use alcohol to justify his awful crime. A chap, combined with all of these dashes, also makes it sound like he's diffusing what he did. But then we have the words insisted and threatened, which reveal to the audience what he is really saying. Now, along with this, he also reveals that he stole money from his dad's office to try and pay Eva. This is the first time that a character has done something illegal, not just something immoral, which shows the need for a police inspector to be here. However, Mr. and Mrs. Birling, still consumed by their promise of Mr. Birling getting a knighthood and wanting to be accepted by the Crofts, are only interested in covering up this crime from society and the media. They're not really concerned with what this actually says about Eric, their son. Mr. Birling says, "You must give me a list of those accounts. I've got to cover this up as soon as I can. You damned fool. Why didn't you come to me when you found yourself in this mess?" Eric replies, "Because you're not the kind of father a chap could go to when he's in trouble. That's why." This reveals the divisions between him and his father. And arguably, these divisions in the family were always there, but it's just that the inspector brought them out. In this way, the inspector can be seen as the iceberg, whilst the Titanic can be viewed as the Birling family. What seemed unsinkable before, based on superficial things like size and grandeur, turned out to be fallible and sink quite rapidly. Priestley uses the Titanic as an analogy to show how this family and the capitalism they represent and breed can sink quite easily because the weaknesses are inherently in them. In this way, socialism, hear me out, is the sea. It's the wave of change that has taken over, a natural and obvious way for capitalism to end. Eric finds out about Mrs. Birling's treatment of Eva when she was pregnant, and he becomes really aggressive, even threatening to attack his own mother. He says, "Yes, and you killed her, and the child she'd have had too. My child, your own grandchild. You killed them both. Damn you, damn you." Now that accusatory and fragmented language shows Eric's complete breakdown. And the use of religious imagery in damn highlights the sins that Mrs. Birling has committed and the future that awaits her in the afterlife. His father, Mr. Birling, tries to intervene in quite a pathetic way, in my opinion. He says, "Why, you hysterical young fool, get back or I'll..." But he and the others are cut off with a single word utterance from the inspector. The inspector says, "Stop." And we're given some respite from that escalating tension. and climax, and we're given a moment to reflect on our thoughts and listen in a very direct and preachy way to the socialist message of the evening. The inspector rounds up what each character did, more harshly towards the older Birlings and Eric, and slightly more compassionately towards Sheila and Gerald. He says that Eric just used her for the end of a stupid drunken evening as if she was an animal, a thing, not a person. He shows the lack of basic humanity and the savagery that these characters showed, using their wealth as a veneer to disguise their true immorality. Mr. Birling finally shows some remorse. He says, "Look, Inspector, I'd give thousands. Yes, thousands." But the audience can't help but feel that this is quite hollow. He's pleading with the inspector, but what's he still offering? "I'd give thousands." He's still offering money. The repetition of thousands, yes, it's a lot more than the 2.5 shillings that he refused to give his workers, but he's still equating human life with money. He thinks money can bring Eva back to life, like money is God. The inspector remains unimpressed and ends with a speech directly juxtaposing everything Mr. Birling said in his earlier monologue. He says, "But there are millions and millions and millions of Eva Smiths and John Smiths still left with us, with their lives, their hopes and fears, their suffering and chance of happiness, all intertwined with our lives." The inspector is the voice of Priestley as well as the voice for the working classes. He wants to bring in this idea of community and collective responsibility, even bringing in religion on his side. He says, "We are members of one body. We are responsible for each other." Mr. Birling's views are therefore exposed as wrong, showing why the inspector's entrance had to cut him off, why Labour had to end the reign of capitalism before more havoc could be wreaked on the country. But perhaps the most chilling message lies in the inspector's final words. He says, "If men will not learn that lesson, then they will be taught it in fire and blood and anguish." That conditional clause is a clear warning. If you don't learn that lesson, this is going to happen. Learn the lesson or else. Fire and blood and anguish could refer to hell, or the 2 world wars, or eternal punishment. But there's polysyntheton used here, and fire and blood and anguish, and it shows the ongoing suffering that they will endure if they do not change. Torture and punishment will be inflicted on society if they and the Birlings do not change their ways. The inspector is almost priest-like here. Now, Priestley could have ended the play there, but he doesn't. The play changes direction again when Gerald Croft comes back into the room. He had stepped out for a minute, and while he was out, he met a police officer, and he figured out that that man wasn't a police officer. The family had been conned. The inspector was not a real one. Now, the family had already confessed their crimes, but the fact that he wasn't a real inspector means that there's no real consequence. They've got away with it. And that's enough for the older Birlings to feel really relieved and really excited. Mr. Birling starts shouting, "By jingo, a fake!" And the exclamation mark is clearly him celebrating. He has quickly lost everything he learnt, and there are no signs of remorse, no signs of any responsibility. And that's an attitude that's mirrored in his wife. However, the younger generation have transformed into socialists now. Their lessons are ingrained inside them, and they are truly remorseful and regretful for what they did and the part they played. So they challenge their parents directly and consistently. Eric shouts, "And I say the girl's dead and we all helped to kill her, and that's what matters." And Sheila flares up with, "Well, he inspected us all right. And don't let's start dodging and pretending now. Between us, we drove that girl to commit suicide." So they are echoing each other and they're aligned with each other, which shows that there is hope for the future of society, and that these youngsters recognize the importance of responsibility and are now speaking in the voice of the inspector. Sheila has very much usurped the role of the inspector. She's almost become him. And this redeems Eric and Sheila to a certain extent. Like, they deserve our forgiveness far more than the other older characters. Mr. and Mrs. Birling, disappointingly supported by Gerald, come on Gerald, they continue their celebrations triumphantly. There you are, proof positive. The whole story is just a lot of moonshine. They eradicate all of Eva's life, their crimes and the consequences by using the idiom moonshine. It was all just a bit of moonshine. They don't take any notice of Sheila's warnings. She is pleading with them. She's saying, I tell you, whoever that inspector was, it was anything but a joke. You knew it then. You began to learn something, and now you've stopped. But they're childish in the face of her maturity. This is a real role reversal now. Priestley is showing us that this play is as much about age as it is about class and gender. Being older doesn't necessarily mean that you are more wise or more knowledgeable or more mature. And likewise, being young doesn't mean that you are ignorant. Mr. Birling's hubris, his excessive pride and arrogance, is cemented by his reaction to Gerald's phone call to the infirmary. They find out no girl died tonight from suicide, and Mr. Birling has his final smug victory, patronizing his children one last time. He says, now look at the pair of them, the famous younger generation who know it all, and they can't even take a joke. A joke. Everything that family did is reduced to that one word. It was all a joke. But I'm sorry. That is enough for the supernatural world to perform its last much needed intervention. The Birlings had their final chance and they blew it. Priestley gives his audience one last twist when Mr. Birling receives the phone call, and his family as well as the audience have no choice but to hear the words. A girl has just died on her way to the infirmary after swallowing some disinfectant, and a police inspector is on his way here to ask some questions. They didn't learn their lesson, so now they will have to face the fire and blood and anguish, this time with a real inspector. And they did it to themselves. They were in such an urgent rush to shift the responsibility away from themselves, as they always are, that they called a hospital to inquire about a suicide that hadn't happened yet. The knighthood has almost certainly gone, and the family has brought this doom on themselves. Priestley leaves his audience with lots to think about. The audience now have to weigh up their own role in the state of the country and decide whether they have the courage to accept the change or be a part of the cycle of doom. It's a simple choice. And there you have it. That is all the key quotations for all the characters, with a bit of analysis and a full summary of Priestley's socialist masterpiece, An Inspector Calls. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you feel like you learned a lot. If you did, give it a like, and don't forget to check out the rest of the videos in this series.